Don't do this." That was the first thing people heard her say, but it came out small, almost lost beneath the music and laughter drifting across the school picnic grounds. It was supposed to be a perfect day, bright sky, cheap speakers blasting pop songs, teachers pretending not to see the rule breaking, students finally breathing after months of exams. Blankets covered the grass. Smoke rose from grills. For a few hours, everyone agreed to believe life was simple. That's why no one noticed the circle forming at first. It started the way these things always do, too casual to look dangerous. A laugh that lingered a second too long. A comment tossed like a pebble but aimed to bruise. A group stepping closer, closing space without ever touching her. She stood near the edge of the field, paper plate shaking slightly in her hands, eyes darting as if she was searching for someone who might not exist. "Relax," one of them said, smiling like it was a joke. "We're just having fun." Fun had that word again. It always did. Someone knocked her plate to the ground. Food splattered the grass. Laughter burst out, louder this time, confident. Phones came out, not to call for help, but to record. That was when the air changed. You could feel it, even from far away, like the moment before a storm when birds go quiet. "Don't," she said again, louder now. "Please." They mimicked her voice, stretching the word, turning it into something ugly. A teacher glanced over, frowned briefly, then turned back to the grill. Kids nearby hesitated, unsure whether to step in or step away. That hesitation, those few seconds, would haunt them later. One of the bullies grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to look violent, just firm enough to say you're not going anywhere. Another step behind her. Someone pushed her backpack off her shoulder, rummaging through it like it was public property. That's when she screamed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was raw and cracked and full of fear, and it cut straight through the music. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. A football thudded to the ground, forgotten. "Stop," someone shouted from the crowd. But the bullies didn't stop. They doubled down. That was their mistake. They thought they were untouchable, popular, loud, protected by numbers and by the belief that consequences only happened to other people. They didn't notice the way students started moving closer, not to watch, but to block exits. They didn't notice a senior ripping off his picnic badge and throwing it aside like it suddenly meant nothing. They didn't notice the silence spreading, heavy and focused. One of them shoved her. She stumbled, fell to her knees. That was it. Someone tackled the guy who pushed her. No warning, no speech, just impact. Another bully swung wildly and missed, hitting air where a laughing crowd used to be. A girl screamed, not in fear but in rage, and jumped between them, shoving the bullies back with both hands. A dozen phones that were recording for entertainment were suddenly recording evidence. Teachers rushed in, but they weren't fast enough to control it. This wasn't chaos, it was unity. Students surrounded her, pulling her up, shielding her with their bodies. Others stood inches from the bullies, faces tight, voices low and dangerous. "You don't get to do that," someone said. "Not here. Not ever." The bullies looked around, finally understanding. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore. No one was smiling. Hundreds of eyes stared back at them, burning with the same emotion, disgust. Police sirens wailed in the distance, called by someone who didn't wait for permission. Parents arrived in a rush of confusion and anger. The picnic ended without announcements, without cleanup, without closure. By Monday, the story had grown teeth. Video spread. Statements were taken. Suspensions turned into expulsions. Scholarships quietly disappeared. Names that once ruled hallways became ones people refused to say out loud. The school held assemblies about kindness and safety, but everyone knew the truth, they hadn't learned it from speeches. They learned it on the grass, under the open sky, when a girl said don't, and a whole school finally listened. And long after the picnic tables were folded and the field returned to normal, one thing remained clear to everyone who was there. Bullies don't fall because they're confronted by authority. They fall when the crowd decides it's done being silent.